Hello and welcome to News Express, exclusively brought to you by Business A.M, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. I am Chukunonso Modi. Now let's take a look at the stories hitting the front page this week. Now the big one, global airlines fancy profits in 2023, but outlook gloomy for Nigerian carriers. Sub-headline as IATA revises 2022 loss to $9.7 billion from $42.1 billion. Now another big headline, Abbas seeks to tap EDF to produce shoes, leather products for Africa. Sub-headline, EDF to enhance production capacity, export. Now, you should also check out Finance and Investment with the story bakers have local flour alternatives. Definitely look out for commodities and agriculture with inflation opens gold opportunities. We also have energy, power and renewable with the story Africa prepares early for COP27. Project Syndicate says fiscal policy should return to fundamentals, and executive knowledge series paradox mindset and team creativity. Now let's bring in Philip Isakwa, the publisher of Business A.M, to help us make sense of the headlines. Good morning, Philip.
Good morning, Nonso. It's good to be back again.
It's good to have you back, Mr. Philip.
Thank you very much, Nonso. I hope you had a great weekend.
I did. I hope you did too.
Yes, we did.
All right, so let's go to the first story, which says global airlines fancy profits in 2023, but outlook gloomy for Nigerian carriers. Now, the global airlines are expected to post a much lower aggregate loss this 2022, and the International Air Transport Association has revised the loss down to $9.7 billion, with global carriers expected to begin to see profit by 2023. Now, according to IATA, forecast yields, a proxy for airfares, will rise by 5.6% this year globally. However, some aviation industry experts are doubtful, if the expected global positive scenario will rub off on Nigerian carriers who are highly indebted. And I do see where these analysts are coming from, Mr. Philip, because right now the aviation sector hasn't been its best for a while. It has suffered flight hiccups.
Absolutely. So the aviation sector in Nigeria has been going through such a rough patch. It's not just because of the crisis that we've had in the last 1 or 2 years or 3 years, but it's been one sort of inconsistency or the other, but this is an interesting story. Its takeoff point should be, let's go back to 2020 in particular, when you had COVID, and the whole combination of both aviation sector and tourism completely going down. Flights were cancelled in different parts of the world, and the sector really took a hit. In airlines made quite a lot of losses, because nothing was happening. Every attention was focused on COVID and how to get out of that. There were a lot of restrictions. Restrictions. Two types of restrictions really. One is that the one that the governments all over the world imposed, just because they wanted to be sure that there wasn't infections going around by people traveling from one point to the other, But there was also restrictions that individuals imposed on themselves, not traveling to different parts of the world because they didn't want to go to places where they would get infected, and so it's taking a long time, airlines took a lot of beating, as a result of that, made a lot of losses, and recovery wasn't being expected, of course, airlines are still flying, flying from one part of the world to the other, whether domestic in different countries or the international flights, but it has taken quite a long time, for us to begin to see travel movements. Holidays were not being taken, 2020 was bad, very bad, because that was the year that everything was going down, but 2021 also, because people were cautious, they were not traveling, they were not booking holidays, so they were not going to different parts of the world, so it's interesting, to hear these predictions coming from not just the IATA, but also McKinsey, the global consultancy, also talking about some positives beginning to begin to be seen in that sector, So it's good news, because we always expect that the airlines will be in business, make money, and let the world go smoothly round, and let the economies of the world perform really good, So we are hearing now, losses have been down. We talk about losses of down to $9.7 billion. From a high of 42.1 billion, and that's quite a lot of clawing back, the losses, for 2022, this is really good news. However, the analysts or experts are saying that do not expect to see that in Nigeria, because whereas you have all sorts of problems happening globally, we have a peculiarity about the kind of situations that that Nigeria sometimes gets itself involved in, get into. You can look at it from the way that the sector is set up. It's set up to be seen as if traveling by air is it should be for a particular group of people,
yes.
But we know that in different parts of the world, it's just a means of transportation, and different economies create such incentives for airlines to operate in such a way that you have the numbers in the sense that different people can afford to fly from. I think you probably have the longest flight in Nigeria being perhaps Lagos to Maiduguri or so, being 1 hour plus, or let's say, I don't think there's a 2 hours flight, but let's, for the sake of analysis, just a 2 hours flight. The longest flight would be 2 hours. That would be quite a long flight, really.
Yes.
But you expect that people should be able to hop on a plane, and be able to fly from one part of the country to the other. So peculiarity with Nigeria's situation is always been the case whenever we talk about economic performance, and in this case we have it. Recall, so that was it a week or two ago? We had a clampdown on one of the airlines, that by the authorities, saying that an audit was going to be carried out, and we had one voluntarily stopping a flight operation, some particular, scheduled flight operation, just because we want to check, do some in-house cleaning, cleanup, and only last week, it's part of the stories that we've taken today, that there's a general, the NCAA, is looking at all the airlines, and doing what they call what the comprehensive audit, both financial and operational auditing of these airlines to see what exactly is going down. Again, of course, they talk about this being as a result of, they're wanting to ensure that safety is paramount in all the operations of these airlines. But we also know that they are troubled businesses, troubled in the sense that the finances are down, you don't have the people flying, the number of people flying, to create the kind of mass, that we even have airfares coming down, so they have to, they are currently facing issues with aviation, jet A fuel, the the fuel that they use to power the aircraft, or the planes, from one part to the other. And they have challenges with that. They've talked about operational scheduling, that does not allow for night flights. Many of the airports, they say they can only fly to from what you call, they only do daytime flying. They cannot. You don't have an overnight flight. In most of the airports. So they are troubled. They are troubled. The Nigerian airlines are troubled. The association of the team, they have airline operators of Nigeria, AON, that has come up many times in the last 2, 3, 4 months, complaining bitterly about the situation that they are in, So, of course, it's positive, some international airlines, global airlines are looking to make good profits, this year, next year, according to these predictions that have been made, these positive predictions that have been made, but locally, the situation looks really, still really serious, gloomy for domestic operators.
Yes, definitely. I mean, coming to the scarcity of Jet A1, because it's one of the major factors that's causing flight disruptions in the aviation industry. I mean, according to the article, it says worldwide the average price of jet fuel is about $4.15 per gallon, or about 149% more than a year ago. This is according to IATA. But in Nigeria, it keeps getting higher. And I mean, it's already bad enough that, they've predicted that globally, the aviation sector will do better, and we are still, grappling with it. But now even getting fuel for the airline is even a problem for us as well. So what's happening?
That's been a long challenge, so it's been going on for quite some time. It's not just this year. I don't think we've had this intermittently, happening for a number of years now. It's almost like the PMS that we use to fuel our cars and maybe some parts by neighborhood generators. You've had this problem for a long time. It's not new. It's not what started yesterday. It's not what started a year ago, and then we've been caught up, and this because, like we say, nothing is coming out of the refineries locally, so we are still importing. It's not just PMS and kerosene and the rest of it that we're importing. We're also importing Jet A fuel, despite the fact that we have four big refineries, but these refineries are not producing they're not producing a drop of PMS, not to talk of Jet A, again, we are a crude oil, Nigeria is a crude oil producing country, but it's not been able to get its act right, properly with regards to the things that it ought to be doing right, and this is one of them. That we have 4 big refineries with capacity for I think 5,000 barrels of crude oil for refining, but it's not able to refine anything. So we have to import all the fuel that we need, including what the airlines need, Jet A fuel. And now, because of that, we find that we have caught up in the web of global development. We've had global oil prices rising in recent times. We talked about this also. When we talked about the average price prediction, we're saying that average price of crude oil was going to be $100. I think we're talking about this towards the end of last year. We're looking ahead to 2022. But all of a sudden we saw that before we knew it, I think just shortly before Russia invaded Ukraine, we started seeing a rise in crude oil prices, well above $100, per barrel, and then the war started, and then it escalated. Although in recent times we've had what's it called, an easing in that direction, but this is all what we are caught up in, because if you have to import, you're not talking about just taking your crude oil to the international market and coming back with what's it called, with fuel. You're talking about these things are subjected to international prices, international market development, and sometimes with all the speculations that go on, and see prices rise, and when you factor all of that, you see why you then have a scarcity in the sense that it's not that they are not producing jet A fuel, because international airlines are coming into the country, and going back, because they can source this material from wherever they can source it from, but we have scarcity for us, because this has to be imported, and it has to be imported by the NMPC or so, and what it means is that it does not have the capacity, to import, the need, for these people, and because prices have gone up, and then when they have access to it, because the prices have gone up, the domestic airlines are in. They have to check their books. If it's not tallying, it means they are not able to do so much. Especially if they cannot wake up and stretch the fares anyhow. Just currently we are looking at airfares. 1 hour flight of 100. I don't know the last time over 100 or 120,000 naira. Before that, we're looking at airfares of 70,000 naira one way. For 1 hour flight. But all that has disappeared. And when you raise prices, people do one or two things. They decide not to travel at all, or they look for alternatives, But Nigeria's situation, like nonso, the security crisis has made it difficult to travel by road or by train, so they essentially choose to cancel their flights, going to different places, and it all boils. All this, with all this happening, it's the airlines that suffer, and there's nothing anyone can do about that, because the conditions are still the same. Foreign exchange, access to foreign exchange is still a problem for the airlines. They have to service or do occasional servicing. And some of these services, because they don't have MRO, a well-equipped MRO in the country, they have to go outside the country to do some category, different categories of this servicing in categories sometimes, and because they don't have the facilities locally, they have to look for foreign exchange, and so there's no foreign exchange. There's no foreign exchange for manufacturers, and they fall into this crisis. So they are in serious crisis, and they will not benefit from any rise that we're seeing, because the environment isn't just proper. It's not good for them.
Yes, it's not. It's really terrible, and I like the fact that you brought up the insecurity, because yes, the situation in the aviation sector is terrible. We have highly indebted carriers in the country, and it seems like each day there are fresh challenges, from the rising fuel costs I spoke about to high wage bills. And it's worse that they've passed it on to consumers in the form of higher fares. And I still hammer on the fact that the picture is quite different in the global stage. But now, what can the aviation sector do right? Because with how things are going, the present appetite for travel in Nigeria might not be sustainable, even though we're also looking at insecurity. So people will rather fly than have to go by road and pay, millions of nairas ransom, that kind of thing. So what can the aviation sector do?
Well, it's a catch-22 situation for the operators in the sector. They have no control over a number of things. They have no control over foreign exchange. They have no control over what you call even the production or supply of jet A fuel. They have no control over so many things, including the regulators. Who have not. So basically, we should be looking at at the general environment under which this aviation, the aviation sector operates. Nigeria needs to decide. There's something that they call encouragement. That comes from the regulating institutions or the Nigeria as a whole. So you talk about government this time, right? So there's something they call encouraging people to fly. You understand? So you create an environment that leads to more people flying. And that is why you have in other jurisdictions you have what you call low cost airlines. The easy jets of this world, the jet 2 or jet blue of this world who enter the industry because government wants to see more people flying. And they create the environment for some airports to not be expensive for airlines to operate into. So for instance, I guess let's take Lagos for instance. Assuming sometime in the future you have because of I think there's an airport that is planned around the Lekki axis. Assuming that airport comes on stream, you would then have two airports in Lagos. So you have one in that area, and you have one in the number one we have at Ikeja. So what you will have is that the government will because people will fly in depending on. Perhaps you say where they are going to, say those who are going to the island who want to fly using going through the Lekki airport when it's up running, But you will find that there might be some people there might be some flights flying into Lekki Airport that will be cheaper, compared to flying into the Ikeja International Local Airport, and people will choose to, even though they stay on the mainland, because of that low cost flight, they will choose to go to fly, look for airlines flying into Lekki, So that is the kind of situation that some government creates, to encourage the business to thrive. You have to. I think there is often. I choose my words carefully. There's often this disdain for business. There's a mutual, what you call suspicion. Whether mutual, I don't understand, but government seems to be too suspicious of business. It forgets too quickly that business is responsible for creating employment, and creating wealth, But it does not. It needs to encourage the sector more. There needs to be a sitting down to say what is our problem, what are the best solutions to this, and to look at where things have been done in the past. I mean, there's nothing that is rocket science. There's nothing that is new. These things have been done elsewhere. They have been done in different parts of the world. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So I would like to see a situation where we're not talking about how airlines will increase their airfares, but how, almost like the same thing with taxation, how you will bring in more people, because the more you have, let's assume that you have say 6 flights, going to Abuja every day, because that is all that they can accommodate. Can you imagine where an airline can because of the number of people coming, can increase its frequency, into Abuja, doing 10, doing 12, doing 20, and people flying into different parts of the country. Of course, again, that is why we talk about the environment. So you have to talk about security as well, because it can just be that you want to go to Jos, Nonso wants to go to Jos, because just to take some time out. And then there are flights available, at the airport in Ikeja, for this to happen, and you just hop on the plane and you're off to Jos. But I can bet you that you probably will have one or two, three flights going to Jos, and that will be it, and that's because because the environment has not been created for mass people going out en masse, by air. You find more people going by road, and that's what government needs to do. And like I said, the operators are handicapped in a lot of things. They have no control of forex. They have to fix they have to service their aircraft, and perhaps also concerted effort must be put in place to see that an MRO, a standard, they have standard MROs, at least more than one, dealing with different categories of aircraft servicing in the country, so that they stop burning foreign exchange that Nigeria doesn't have anyway, taking their aircraft abroad.
I mean, this is, I don't want to say sad, but then this issue with the aviation sector is one that really needs to be tackled fast. But let's go to the second story, a really interesting one, I must say. And it says, Abbas seeks to tap EDF to produce shoes, leather products for Africa. Now, the famous Aba, which is Nigeria's biggest small business manufacturing hub, is seeking to be tested with the challenge of producing shoes and other leather products for export to the rest of Africa. But now, for this to happen, operators on the hub are seeking wider access to tap the newly introduced Export Development Fund to enhance the production capacity and encourage operators to produce for exports. I mean, Mr. Philip, this is great news. I mean, Aba is not just settling for Nigeria, but it wants to show itself to the rest of the world at large.
There are interesting statistics when you read this story. You see interesting statistics that have been reeled out here. This is what a lot of these things are not new.
Yes,
if you talk to different people, analysts, I'm sure that they've been talking about this for a very long time. How ABBA, represents a particular kind of industry. Just like they used to talk about Kano, yes, where they make the leather, and you talk about Kaduna, where the textile used to be produced. For instance, visionary leadership will mean that you look at Kano and bring back Kano on stream, in terms of producing leather, and then you look at Aba, you bring Aba very much on stream in terms of putting the leather, into different manufacturing different things, especially shoes. So this is an interesting, positive story, and again, that is why we decided to put it up on the front page, so that people don't just forget that there's a city called Aba where so many things are being produced, that especially with regards to small scale and small and medium scale manufacturing. Aba is a place that if you got visionary leaders, they will have put in a lot of money and turned the city into a manufacturing hub, to develop this. So it's a good thing that we are looking at a new fund called Export Development Fund, EDF. That has been introduced by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. We don't know the size of that fund. We're hoping that it is a large sum. Again, this is what needs to happen for progress to be made. That kind of fund being export focused will mean that Aba, if the funds are made available to it. Again, this story is saying that even though the EDF has been put in place, a welcome development, they are saying that a lot more should be done, so that the purpose can be realized, not just saying things and putting on paper and then everybody goes to sleep, but the positive things is that what we're hearing here is that advice putting itself forward to say that we can produce leather products, shoes, leather and other leather products, for Africa, So we talk about diversifying the economy. We talk about earning foreign exchange from different sources other than crude oil. And here is one, and this is not just one that is based on raw material. We're talking about manufactured goods, which is one of the bane, not that Nigeria and generally Africa doesn't have what's called finished product sent into the export market. But here these people are saying that putting their feet down to say that we can be the channel through which export to Africa can be done. And again, it's specific here. They're talking about shoes and leather products, and all they need to do is the government needs to do is to look at the size of the fund, and be serious about it, look at what is needed. Of course, there will be other factors, for instance, the supply of electricity. Yes. Has been a major issue. It's still a major issue, when you provide the funds for the people to have the machinery that they need, to produce these shoes to produce clean shoes, that can be exported. You also need to talk about when the machines are in place, do they have power to run those machines and produce what they ought to produce. Power has been a major concern. It's the concern of everybody, in the country, both for personal and industrial use, but this is a positive story, and we're hoping that something good will come out of this.
Definitely, it is a positive story, and I do agree that, in fact, listeners have to read the article to truly understand, because there's some data that I saw there, especially one that says they export about 1 million pairs of shoes to neighboring African countries, including Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon weekly. But then this is done unofficially. So imagine if we make this official. That is another income coming into the economy. So definitely the government has to, this should be a wake-up call for the government to find ways for ABBA to, get this export, to tap into this export development fund so that we can do more,
Absolutely. There's everything positive. This story oozes of positiveness, and it is important to look at this. People are saying individual on our own without any guide, we are exporting 1 million pairs of shoes, to other parts of the continent already, and you look at the statistics and say, they do this, why don't we put in the money that they need, and put in, see what more they can do. And we're talking about people who perhaps, they produce the shoes in Aba, and then what's it called? People come from different parts of of Africa, particularly Cameroon and the axis around that area, and they trade. You probably bring in some money, they exchange it across the border, or when they come in, and exchange that into naira, and then the people buy and go, or they even take their goods, the shoes that they produce, or the leather products that they produce, and they just go out. So there's no way of even capturing what is entering the system, the Nigerian system, in terms of foreign exchange. So you can imagine when a determined effort is made by government to make this really functional in terms of much more organized, than it presently is, with a determination to to grow the economy with this, not just having individuals or small businesses make money, but seeing that this is actually producing contributing, to economic growth generally, and this is what a lot of analysts say, that the attention that is required, for these things are often not given, and that's a major problem.
I mean, this is, like I said, an interesting story, and we definitely look forward to positive feedback on this particular article. All right, thank you, Mr. Philip. We'll definitely see how the stories develop this week.
Thank you very much, Nonso. Have a great week yourself.
You too. That was Philip Isakba, the publisher of Business A.M, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. That's all for now. Stay tuned for more.